hello, you guys. I am so excited to be here and to be doing this next masterclass, The Clean Eating Kid, how to help our kids hop on the clean eating wagon through their own free will, right? So this is going to be so much fun. The feedback I have been getting the last few I guess the last 24 hours from yesterday's masterclass has been really great. People are loving it. So we're going to wait just another minute. It's 10:01. We're going to wait one more minute and let people hop on. In the meantime, Leisha and Jen, thank you for being here, you guys. Will you both see if you can find the chat box? We're going to be having a bit of interaction during this. Will you find the chat box and then just tell me where you're from? That would be lovely. And as we wait, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get ready to rock and roll. Let's see here. This is so funny. Hi, Michelle. I believe I just sent you an email. So thank you for writing me, and I'm excited you are here. Can Michelle, Jen, or Leisha, if you guys can just find the chat box and make sure you can hear me well, let me know that you can hear me, and we will get started. All right. Okay, so okay, there's the chat box. Oh, you can hear me. Jen and Michelle, you can hear me. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for letting me know. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling then. Today's master class is on the clean eating kid. How to get your kids on the clean eating train with their own free will. My name is Jenny Carr. I think you all know that by now. I'm a leading inflammation expert. And before we get going too much, right, let's just talk about why might you actually listen to the advice I give you today. So I have written 2 books. I'm an international best-selling author. My first book, Piece of Cake, The Secret to an Anti-Inflammatory Diet, is actually coming out in all bookstores around the country. And about a month from now, I'm flying down to Nashville for a big red carpet event. So I'm super excited, and I'm imagining you all have a copy of that book, at least the ebook from me. You can also pre-order it on Amazon. The next one, which honestly, you guys, this is the first book I wanted to write, but my publisher said, no, you need to write Piece of Cake first. My heart and my passion is with kids and the youngest generation. So the Clean Eating Kid, Grocery Store Food Swaps for an Anti-Inflammatory Diet, is a book I am incredibly passionate about, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But I was also a teacher for 10 years, and so that is my background, is with students, is with children, and seeing how so many of my students were really impacted. It was obvious they were so impacted by the foods they were eating. So many kids that are experiencing behavioral conditions, mental, emotional conditions, really just not having self-confidence, and seeing how diet tied into that was a big contributor to wanting me to step up and do something to help our young generation. I'm also a regular contributor to Mind, Body, Green, Well and Good. I have been seen on Dr. Hyman, US News and World Report. I'm a speaker, and most importantly for me is that I've helped thousands of people reverse chronic symptoms without feeling overwhelmed and deprived, which is such a gift for me to be a participant in. So you guys stay tuned, because at the end of this course, you're going to be invited to a very special presentation I know you won't want to miss out. But I want to start with this quote. It's the first time in history that the youngest generation is predicted not to outlive their parents. This statistic shook me to the core when I first heard it in the documentary Fed Up, which if you haven't seen, you definitely should. It catapulted me into finding a way to put a stop to the inflammation epidemic, especially within our youngest generation. So let's just talk about inflammation. It's a big buzzword out there, and it's like we almost assume everyone knows what inflammation is or how it's impacting us. But the truth is, a lot of us don't realize how inflammation is impacting us in more ways than we realize. So let's talk about some symptoms from inflammation. Over 40% of the population suffers from one or more chronic health symptom. Children are among the majority of those with autoimmune and behavioral conditions, which are on the rise. So you guys, let's just take, let's get ahead of myself. Let's take a moment to think about, how is inflammation impacting your child? And then we're also going to be talking about how it's impacting you. Because if you have a child with a chronic health condition, then the chances are the stress, possibly the comfort eating, like more than likely that is impacting you as well. And there's probably some inflammation and chronic symptoms showing up in you. So we're going to talk about both of these today. But first, let's think about our child, right? So does your child move through or have experienced low energy, poor digestion, poor sleep, diabetes, lack of focus, anxiety, depression, skin conditions, autoimmune disease, or simply a feeling of being in the funk? So inflammation targets the areas that you are most susceptible to in the body. It shows up uniquely on each and every person, which is why it can sometimes be tricky to identify that it is the symptoms that we're experiencing are connected to inflammation. There's one easy way, one consistent method of determining whether or not inflammation is impacting you or members in your family. And that is whether or not they have chronic symptoms. So symptoms that they've been experiencing for a month or two or more. And it can be anything, like I just went over this whole list, right? From energy, poor sleep, digestion issues, to diabetes, to autoimmune conditions, to behavioral conditions, anxiety, depression. All of these are just like a tiny list of the many things that can show up. And we're gonna do an exercise in a minute to help identify these. So do you or your child move through each day knowing that they could accomplish so much more with relationships, school, self-confidence, learning, or athletic performance if they just felt better? Do they consistently come home in the afternoon and want to rest? Do they get cravings often? Is there stubborn, unwanted weight potentially making them unhealthy? And does your child experience chronic behavioral conditions such as a sensory condition, which my son had, ADD or ADHD? So let's just take a minute. And if you were on the call yesterday, we did this activity for ourselves. So if you were on the call yesterday, bonus points to you. You already have half of this activity done. If you're new to this masterclass, what we're gonna do is, you see the stick figures and they're representative of yourself and your child, right? And you can add more stick figures if you have multiple children or people you're concerned about. If you were to take a wand, right, a magic wand, and it could transform your body or your child's body into perfect, vibrant, optimal health, think about what symptoms, what conditions, what ailments, what behavioral, mental, or emotional aspects that have been chronic would you change? So we're going to do a scan from the top of our head to the tips of our toes. And notice that sometimes our symptoms are really loud and obvious, right? If you've been diagnosed with a condition, if you have an autoimmune condition, if you have digestive issues that make you stay close to bathrooms all the time, right? There's a number of things. Maybe you have psoriasis, or you have eczema and stuff on your conditions on your skin that make you feel self-conscious. Like there's some things that really speak loudly, symptoms that show up loudly. And there's others that are so subtle, but they build up over time. And often we forget how good we actually can feel because the par has been to have these chronic subtle things. So for example, a number of years ago, I had chronic nausea. I was always nauseous, like always. And I was extremely tired. I would go to bed at 7 o'clock every night, and that just became the norm. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, my body is just a nauseous, like I'm just a nauseous person. That sounds funny. I just have nausea, right? I just have nausea, and that's just who I am. I didn't realize that actually the truth is that's not who I am, and then that can be changed. So take a moment and think about what is it that, again, if you could scan the top of your head to the tips of your toes and identify any chronic symptoms, whether they're really loud or super subtle, what would those be? And once you have yours, maybe even make a note of them or jot them down, identify what your child's would be to the best of your ability. This is an awesome activity to do with kids, by the way, where you have them actually like draw lines on the stick figure or put X's where their body hurts or where it doesn't feel good, right? So if you have anxiety or depression, you can put a line next to the head. If your tummy hurts, they might put an X there. Like you can make it more interactive for kids. Okay, and once you have that, well, a few of you type in the chat box what is coming up for you. If anything is surprising, like what are the symptoms that are obvious? And then is there anything that you're like, well, I'm not sure if it's connected with inflammation. However, it is chronic. So type that in the chat box if you would. And as you guys are typing that, I'm going to talk about my story, share my son's story with you, give you even more of an idea of how inflammation shows up. So I know all of these symptoms all too well. At a young age, my son had a severe sensory condition. In fact, it was so bad that a drop of water landed on his shirt and he would scream and tell me it hurt while trying to tear his shirt off. He struggled with self-confidence and to have healthy relationships when his emotions escalated. His attention was lacking, and it was clear that Tasha's sensory condition was impacting his everyday of living, and not for the best. I had recently adopted anti-inflammatory eating, clean eating, and experienced a reversal of my physical and mental symptoms. It was like magic. So I had to remind myself there was always hope, because if any of you are, well, all of you are probably parents or moms or help a kid in some way, shape, or form, right? There can be so much guilt when our kids aren't feeling well or when they have a behavioral condition and you're wanting to support them. It's gonna make me get emotional, but you don't know how else to do it. You've covered all avenues. My son spent the first year of his life, he spent 3 months in and out of hospitals. We were in the ICU, hooked up to IVs. It was so scary. And at the time, I knew nothing about inflammation, and I just wanted my son to feel better. So some of the people that are sharing, Rebecca says that some of the conditions connected to inflammation, sleep issues, yes, sensory condition, definitely behavioral issues, and stubborn weight, all directly correlated with inflammation. Eczema, absolutely. Oh, frequent ear aches, yes, and frequent pneumonia. So my daughter actually had frequent pneumonia, and we found out that she had inflammation in her body. And I was like, what? I don't understand how that's possible, because she eats so clean. My daughter is like the cleanest little girl in the entire world, much more than my son. And what we found out is actually there was mold in her house, and she was having environmental toxicity and inflammation from that. Frequent earaches, when my son was little, that's how it started, you guys. He had ear infections every month to every other month. I didn't know better. I just went to the doctor, gave him antibiotics like constantly, which was destroying his gut biome. But again, I didn't know anything about this, and the inflammation was at the root of all of them. Michelle says her daughter is overweight, occasional issues with constipation. That's a big one with inflammation. So you guys, you're right on. Jen says tummy pain. All of these things are absolutely rooted in chronic inflammation. The way to reverse them is simply to remove the inflammation, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So actually, that's what I decided to do with my son, right? I decided to do a little science experiment. and it's what I encourage all of you to do with your kids. I dedicated 2 weeks of making all of Tasha's food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, and snacks, by removing the top inflammatory foods, processed sugar, wheat, cow dairy, inflammatory oils, and GMOs. At the time, this was 8 years ago, 7.5, 8 years ago, there were no grocery store swaps. Like, those didn't exist that were actually truly free of these top inflammatory foods. I was making everything on my own. But here's what happened. The reason I decided to make everything on my own is because he would eat well at home, but then he'd go to school and he'd have things with inflammatory foods, or he'd go to a birthday party. And I really wanted to see if I totally remove the inflammation, because it takes 2 weeks for the inflammation from the top inflammatory foods to move and fully process out of the body, what would happen? So within 2 weeks, Tasha's sensory condition greatly improved. And within 2 months of maintaining anti-inflammatory eating, his sensory condition was 80% better, if not more. You guys, my little boy went from being on an IEP, individual education plan, through special ed for his sensory condition. This makes me so emotional. Sorry, I was not expecting this. And then now he was off hiking with his grandpa, and he waded through this river and got his jeans totally wet. He used to never be able to wear jeans. Needless to say, get wet, and he's walking through wet clothes and wet jeans. This is amazing. If you know anything about kids with sensory conditions, it is incredible, his improvement. Rebecca says, yes, my big question is how to do this with eating out, snacks out of my control, school lunches. So yes, I'm going to give you a few ideas, and then during this demonstration, this masterclass, Rebecca, and I think you'll have a lot of ideas. And then if you end up joining, I'm offering a new program called Have It All. We're going to be diving into all food swaps, individualized food swaps, loads of information. School lunches are very hard for me. I make all of my kids' lunches, and we'll talk about that when we talk about streamlining in the kitchen, how to make this a reality in this class today. So my life purpose began, right? At this moment, I realized my life purpose was to help the youngest generation and their families adopt anti-inflammatory eating without feeling deprived and without mom feeling, this one, overwhelmed. I knew that my son had a dramatic impact and healing through anti-inflammatory eating, and had happened for me as well. And so my question was, how do I maintain this? I don't want my kid to have food issues. I don't want him to feel left out. I want him to be able to celebrate and enjoy the foods that he eats, as well as me, by the way. How do I make this happen? At the time I was teaching, I was working 55 hours a week, had a little boy at home who had been really sick. Life was crazy. How do I make this happen? And so this meant I needed to get creative in the kitchen and knowledgeable with different food companies, which over the years I've done tons of research. I'm constantly doing research and really understanding what kinds of ingredients food companies are putting into their products, and which ones are actually good for us to eat and which ones cause inflammation. It's amazing how much research has to go in that, because food companies are really good at marketing us and tricking us, right? Making us think that we will have these healthy foods when indeed they're sneaking in inflammatory filler ingredients. So my fourth life purpose was to figure out how to streamline in the kitchen so I could make this way of eating a reality for us all. So I decided to write a book or two. Right? And I want to just share with you, the Clean Eating Kid, a few things that people are saying, because I think it will inspire you to adopt this way of eating and realize it's not as overwhelming as we may think, right? So Colleen Walkup, who's a co-founder of Mind Body Green, wrote that the Clean Eating Kid helps families navigate the tricky world of food inflammation and starts your family on a path of healthy eating. Finally, a toolkit to help take the stress out of meal planning, holidays, and parties. And then Dr. Mark Hyman, who, if you guys have not followed his work, I highly recommend him. He is a world-renowned functional medicine doctor as well as an MD, and he's all about inflammation. He's been pioneering inflammation and how to heal by removing inflammation from the diet for many, many years. And he says, CAR is on a mission to support the youngest generation as they experience healing through diet. The Clean Eating Kit will show you how to make anti-inflammatory eating a reality for the whole family. And last but not least, Emily Lawrence, a senior food and health editor of Well and Good, writes, the Clean Eating Kit is the ultimate resource for busy parents who want to give their kids the most nutritious food possible without having to make everything from scratch, which is how I started out doing this, by the way. Who has time for that? From sneaky nicknames for sugar to look out for on labels to a rundown of brands you can trust, Jenny Carr has a knack for providing need-to-know info in a easy-to-digest manner. So that is what we're talking about here. This is my work. The problem I had, how do I help my child adopt clean eating without me feeling overwhelmed, without them feeling deprived? And the solution, you guys, these are the top 3 things that I encourage you to do when beginning to get your kids on the clean eating train. Number 1, give kids food they love without the inflammatory ingredients. This is Food Swaps. If you've been in my Freedom from Inflammation pop-up Facebook group the last few weeks, you know that we've been talking about all kinds of food swaps, right? This is a lasagna. I make this with tinkyata brown rice noodles, with Cadia tomato basil organic tomato sauce, no citric acid, no sugar. I make it with goat mozzarella. So good. Look at how melty and yummy it is. It's not pungent like goat, and you'll get the brands of this in a minute. And then a grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef. That's it. That's what goes in the lasagna. It's super simple. It's easy. You can make a big batch and send it to school lunches, right? I always try to make extras. I always do make extra big batches for dinner and then use leftover for lunches. It's just a very easy way. And if you're making delicious foods like this, the kids are psyched. And so while traditionally lasagna would not necessarily be so great for you, this lasagna, we've swapped out all the inflammatory ingredients for nutrient-rich ingredients without the inflammation. So good for the kids. And you, by the way, because who doesn't want some yummy kid delicious comfort foods too? So number 2, adopt this way of eating for yourself so that your family is in it to win it together. Here's the deal. So often we tell ourselves like, oh, we eat pretty healthy, or maybe we even know we don't eat that healthy. But I know as parents, we often tend to overlook ourselves and our own self-care so we can support our children, right? But the truth is that if we're not showing up as our best version of ourselves, if we're not taking these steps along with our children, then we're going to be, the right word isn't cranky, but it is for me, right? I'll call myself out. I can be really cranky with my kids if I'm not eating well, taking care of myself. We don't have as much patience. We don't feel as grounded. We're not experiencing what happens when we eat something inflammatory and we feel the craving cycle, and then we know how to stop it with my 3 steps to stop cravings in their tracks. If we're not experiencing all of this ourselves, then it's so much more challenging to help our kids, right? If we just want to adopt this way of parenting by telling our kids, like, you can't eat anything, only healthy, only greens, only vegetables is one of the questions someone asked me, like, will we be talking about vegetables and vegetable swaps? That comes down the road. First and foremost, get the inflammation out. Find these food swaps, get them on this clean eating, delicious, yummy, comfort eating foods. Their taste buds are going to shift, as will yours. And then you can be adding in more and more vegetables. So I made a curry soup for my family the other day. It was like, I think there were like 10 to 15 different vegetables in it, and my son loved it. That would not have happened years ago, right? So it's really important to first take care of yourself and then your kids. So I recommend that you adopt this way of eating actually for yourself, and then you bring yourself in, then you help your kids. But number 3 is, when you are helping your kids, make it super fun. So as a teacher, when I was a teacher, like, the number 1 thing that will give my students the best results comes from this concept of 5 positives to every 1 negative or constructive feedback or redirection. If you actually try to do this, I would put 5 rubber bands on one hand, and every time I gave a positive, I'd move it to the other, so that when all 5 were on the other, I could be like, okay, I can give a redirect. It takes work, right? However, it is so unbelievably effective. Same thing comes when it comes to anti-inflammatory eating. Make it super fun. Give them lots of positives. Constantly connect how the foods that they're eating that taste, by the way, really yummy and are super healthy for them are making them, be able to run faster. I used to tell my kids, I'd say, oh, let's see, can you run faster today? You ate that like really healthy meal last night. Can you run faster today? Or can you jump higher? Or can you do push-ups? Or how many times can you run around the house, right? And just make these fun games. The kids love it. And it just makes their brains connect. Ooh, I'm taking care of myself. And look at what's happening. Look at the effect of what's happening. I'm running faster, I'm jumping higher. And by the way, I'm having a really good time connecting with my mom. So we do how fast can you run games. We would be doing chugging water because juice, of course, a very common kid, what is the right word? Like a drink that kids very often drink, right? That's full of inflammation. And so we swap that out for water, and then we'll have like water chugging contests. Who can drink their water first? Or how fast can you drink half your glass of water? Like just being fun and interactive. Cooking together in the kitchen, and then going to the grocery store and asking your children, once you've adopted this way of eating and they see changes in you, and you're like, yeah, I'm taking out processed sugar, but we can have raw honey and maple syrup and like all these yummy treats. Have your kids go to the grocery store and tell them they get to be the renegade researcher for the week, and they actually get to go and pick out the foods. So they get to go, this is if they're old enough to read ingredients, right? They go with you and they read the ingredients along with you, and they actually get to decide, oh, is this a healthy snack or healthy food that we can buy or not? If they're not old enough, then you can just model for them. Kids have so much fun, and honestly, it's another way for them to connect with us, which our kids just love doing in these positive ways. I feel like that was a lot of talking. Okay, so what is your why for feeling better for you and your child? A lot of you just shared with me the chronic symptoms that you experience and that your kids experience, right? When it comes to adopting this way of eating and really investing in a new lifestyle, I always encourage people, in fact, I think this is one of the most important questions, is to really, underneath all of the symptoms, there is also a deeper reason of how the symptoms are impacting you or your child from living the day-to-day life that they dream of. So for example, is your career or their school impacted? Is your family stressed out because of health conditions or behavioral concerns? Is it difficult for you or them to be social? Do you or your child dream of being more active or improve athletic performance? Is this impacting your ability to feel confident and empowered? Have you or their symptoms impacted your financial security? And do you or your child experience many days in a depressed or anxious state? So you guys, I want you to take a moment, because this really truly is a very important activity. Take a moment and think, like, underneath the symptoms. Yeah, it's not fun to have aches and pains. If I was a grandparent, right, and I had arthritis, like, it hurts to have arthritis. It is not fun. It's no fun to live through life being in pain. But my bigger why for how that is impacting me may be that it's stopping me from playing with my grandchildren, which I've dreamed of doing my entire life. Or maybe it's stopping me from traveling around the world now that I'm retired. So think about right now, how are these chronic symptoms impacting you? And then how are they impacting your child from living your day-to-day life that you dream? And then go ahead and write it in the chat section, because I'd love to hear this from you guys. Thank you so much, Jen and Michelle and Rebecca, and everyone that is sharing. I really, really appreciate it. I love to hear from you guys. And while you're typing that up, I'm going to give you a few examples of other people's why who I have worked with. So this is Mindy's why. She is a super mom, and she came to me to lose weight. But what happened is that not only did she do that and gain energy and feel amazing, right? But she became an incredible role model, and she helped her kids gain a ton of confidence. What Mindy says about this work is that life-changing. That is what comes to mind when I think of Jenny Carr and what she's brought to me and my family's lives. Her knowledge, passion, and pure love for people and their overall health and well-being is something I can't express in just a few words. I reached out to her to find a quick fix to my problems, and she opened up my mind to so much more. She has not only changed my body, but my overall mental view. She is a pure gift, and I can't imagine my life without her. You guys, what would it be like if you were able to shift your mental view about yourself, your relationship with yourself, and model that for your kids? That alone. Like that's just a ripple effect of removing inflammation from your body, which is so, so cool. And then this is Eric. He came to me because he had a herniated disc and a lot of back pain. He wanted to lose weight, gain energy, eliminate pain, but he ended up, actually the ripple effect, the bigger why, he ended up being able to reestablish and help relationships within his family. So what Eric says is clean eating did a lot more than just help me lose weight. I decided to try it since I had such bad back pain from a herniated disc, and the proposition of back surgery had recently surfaced in my life. It seemed obvious that eating healthy and not drinking beer would help me lose weight. But what was bigger than the relief from the back pain and the weight loss was the feeling I got. I had energy and wasn't as angry as I had been. When I started clean eating, I was traveling a lot. I flew once a week, lived in hotels, and ate in restaurants 3 meals a day. This was an extremely stressful time in my life, and the stress showed through anger in my marriage. Through my work with Jenny, I learned how to eat clean on the go, and soon my relationships began to improve. Clean eating didn't fix the problem of me not being home or remove the stress of travel, but it did give me the energy to do my job and work at my marriage. Oh, I love these people so much. Now 50 pounds later, free of back pain and anger, life continues to fulfill me on a daily basis. What a powerful, profound message. And the last person to give you an example of why, this is actually a client whose work, because of her work, she didn't want me to share her name, but she wanted to make sure I shared her message. You guys, this is the perfect example of really taking care of yourself first so that you can show up for your kids. So what Janine says is, I have been sick with gastro trouble for 3 years. I spent thousands of dollars on testing, and all the doctors could do was rule out what it was not. I tried a gluten-free diet and the paleo diet. Those helped a little, but I only got better by 10%. I was out of acute ER type pain, but I was still so sick. I saw a naturopath, worked with an acupuncturist, all helped a little. I was getting ready to go to the Mayo Clinic and spend more thousands because I had to get better. I have 2 little children and a full and wonderful life, but no health or energy to live it. Sorry. I was severely nauseous all the time, so fatigued it was hard to climb the stairs. I was in bed by 6:30 at night because I couldn't go one step further. I could never make plans because I could not predict my health. I was unable to exercise and had not for 2 years. My world became very small. I didn't know what my next step would be. Then I saw Jenny's ad for an anti-inflammatory diet. I figured, what do I have to lose? I've been following her plan as closely as I can for 2 weeks, and the changes are profound. My nausea of 3 years is gone. I have energy. I now go to bed at 9. I can play and help my kids in the evenings. I can make dates with friends because my health is stable. I know I will be able to follow through, and for the first time in 3 years, my body is craving to move, not craving to lie down. I even went out disco dancing, did a home workout video, skied with my 6-year-old, and swam laps, all by the 3rd week. Jenny is amazing in that she helps me figure out which foods I react to. And the other amazing piece is that the food I'm able to eat is so tasty, and I am never hungry. I used to be ravenous and nothing filled me up. Not anymore. I cannot express how grateful I am that I found Jenny and the program. It has transformed my life and returned to me where I was 3 years ago. Here's what's really cool is that Janine Janine is teaching all of this to her children. So again, when we show up to be the best versions of ourselves, when we take this on, this learning and truly being in alignment with this process, we are able to show up for our kids and help them heal so much more. Her daughter also has a behavioral condition and has had amazing results by changing her diet. So cool. So Courtney, okay, next page. 2 things I want you guys to remember, right? The cells in your and your child's body are either regenerating or degenerating. How does the body heal on a cellular level when you remove inflammation? So here's what happens, you guys. When you are, if you imagine red blood cells, they're meant to be round, red, and plump, okay? And when they're round, red, and plump, if you ever do like a live blood analysis under a microscope, if they're round, red, and plump and moving around, not attached together, what that tells you is that they're absorbing nutrients or absorbing vitamins and minerals as well as staying hydrated. Ultimately, if you talk to any doctor, they will tell you that if you have cellular health, you are going to have overall vibrant health. The two are just absolutely connected. But when we have chronic inflammation in our body, the toxins and inflammation go into the red blood cells and make them look deformed, oblonged, like a star sometimes, right? And they are no longer able to absorb the nutrients and the vitamins anymore, as well as the water. When that happens, they move through the body, and on average, it takes 120 days for each cell to either regenerate or degenerate, depending on the different location in the body. But on average, it's 120 days. And what happens is the cells are moving through our body, either full of inflammation or not. But if they're full of inflammation, as an example, they move through our body, they'll go through the spleen, which is kind of like a Xerox machine. The spleen actually duplicates that cell, and it will duplicate a non-functioning, deformed cell full of toxins, inflammation, the cell that cannot absorb nutrients or water. It will make a brand new cell just like that. And then that deformed cell continues to get more and more added inflammation and toxins the next 120 days, degenerating and making that cell more and more deformed until it goes to the spleen, and the same thing happens. You guys, this is how serious conditions, autoimmune conditions, diabetes, cancer, like more severe conditions, like this is how they show up. But likewise, there is hope, right? Because if we begin to push the inflammation out of the body, the cells all of a sudden become more and more plump and round, and they begin absorbing nutrients and minerals and water. And as they go through the spleen replicates this new, upgraded, updated, rounder, more functioning red blood cell. We continue adopting this way of eating and this anti-inflammatory lifestyle. We continue to see the cells regenerate, actually allowing you to grow old or regenerate and reverse chronic symptoms. It is so, so cool. I wanted to just share that with you on a cellular level because I'm a science girl and I love to share kind of the science. Really quick, Michelle just wrote to feel more confident in my own skin and feel less tired. This is her why, right? She wants to feel more confident in her own skin and less tired, have my child not have constipation, and be able to share in some of the activities her friends are doing without getting tired. Absolutely, that's a huge, beautiful why. Thanks for sharing, Michelle. So you can regenerate the cells in your body by eating foods like these. Like I always say, you can have your cake and eat it too, just the anti-inflammatory style. These are just a few simple recipes. If you guys were in the Freedom from Inflammation group, you probably saw a lot of these recipes. Beautiful, tasty, amazing treats. We just swap out the top inflammatory ingredients for options that taste similar, but don't inflame. It's very, very cool. So what are these top 6 inflammatory foods? Let's just go over them real quickly, right? And how can you swap them out? So number 1 is processed sugar. There's over 50 names for processed sugar. This is one of the things that I do when I work with people, is really become like the detective for them and see indeed are, or sugars especially that they're eating, indeed are inflammatory. So sugars, processed sugars that are really common in kids' foods are things like brown or health food products are brown rice syrup. Sounds super healthy, super inflammatory. Things like apple juice concentrate, also one of the top 50 names of processed sugar. Beet sugar, like that sounds amazing, right? Processed sugar. And processed sugar is actually the most inflammatory thing you can put into your body. And especially kids, it's tied with alcohol, but we don't have to worry about that with kids. The FDA came out with a statement a number of years ago saying that if processed sugar were put onto the market now, it'd be deemed illegal and a toxic drug. You guys, this is a huge deal because the FDA is super conservative and they don't come out with statements like this. But the big sugar corporations, which are a multi-billion-dollar industry, had a massive lawsuit, took that statement and put it down. They smacked it down. Needless to say, this is what the FDA was finding. So what do we swap out the processed sugar with? Names like raw honey, pure maple syrup, unrefined coconut sugar, liquid stevia, monk fruit, or even just whole fruit. When I bake stuff, I use dates all the time to make amazing clean treats with. So wheat and gluten are the second item of the top 6 inflammatory foods. Again, there's a lot of different gluten-free options in terms of flours out there. Some of them are better for us than others. My favorites are almond flour, coconut flour, and cassava flour. Cow dairy is next. Cow dairy has a large protein molecule that makes it really difficult for us to actually break down when we're younger for the first couple of years of our life. So for our kids who are anywhere from infant to 2 to 3 years of age, sometimes even up to 4, our body creates digestive enzymes that actually is able to break down much of the cow dairy. However, around the age of 4, we begin to make much fewer of these digestive enzymes. And so goat or sheep dairy becomes a great swap because the protein molecule is quite a bit smaller. So they have amazing, like the cheese on the lasagna I showed you, that was from a company called Mount Sterling mozzarella cheese. It's not the pungent cheese. You can grate it, you can melt it. It's great for lasagna and quesadillas, like amazing. It's so good. Yogurt, I'll do plain goat yogurt for my daughter who loves yogurt and put the vanilla cream liquid stevia in it. It tastes like vanilla yogurt. It's so good and she loves it. So a number of different swaps. And then coconut, nut, and seed milks, if you don't want to do goat milk, are great. If you have a younger infant, goat milk is a really amazing swap for instead of cow milk. If you have a kid who's still taking a bottle or a baby taking a bottle, because the protein, there's so much more protein in it than a coconut, nut, or seed milk. However, if you want to do coconut, nut, and seed milk, the one thing to just be careful of is that if you buy it in cartons, which it often comes in, you will frequently find that there are fillers, sometimes sugar, inflammatory oils. So you have to read the ingredients carefully. The next top inflammatory food is vegetable oil, canola oil, hydrogenated, and even seed oils if they're heated. So great swaps for those are extra virgin coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and then cold pressed, never heated seed oil. So seeds are really great for you, and so are the oils, flax oil. There's so many different seed oils out there, but when you heat them, they change on a molecular level. This is true of raw honey as well, and can cause an inflammatory response. And then the last is genetically modified foods, or GMOs. The top 3 most genetically modified foods on this planet are corn, wheat, and soy. So especially if you're ever buying anything and the ingredients has corn, wheat, or soy in it, make sure it's certified non-GMO. But it is amazing how many other GMO foods are like potatoes and even coconuts. Like there's so many more GMO foods that are becoming more and more frequent in our society today. Rebecca is saying, what's the brand of the goat mozzarella? It's called Mount Sterling. I'm actually going to have a picture of it later in this presentation so you can see an image of the food, because I always find it helpful when you're going grocery shopping if you know what it looks like. Okay, so the top 5 components that cause chronic inflammation. You guys, we're talking a lot about food because that is always where I start. That's always where I start with people. But there are 5 different, I'll call them lifestyle components that actually can add to the levels of chronic inflammation in our body. And we dive more into this in the Have It All program. But number 1 is not enough water. Speaking of which, I'm going to have a little sip of water. Okay, let's talk the difference between hydration versus detoxification. So what the traditional recommendation of water is that for every pound of your body, you drink a half an ounce of water per day. So for example, if you weigh 100 pounds, the recommendation is that you drink 50 ounces of water per day. That is to stay hydrated. When we're talking inflammation and removing inflammation from the body, what you want to do is increase your water intake to support and upregulate the detox pathways. So you guys, here's the deal. Water is to your liver and kidneys, who, by the way, are responsible for processing the majority of toxins and inflammation in your body. So water is to liver and kidneys what gasoline is to a car. If a car's gas tank is on empty, it's going to be sputtering along the side of the highway. It's not going to function well. It may even stop, right? It's certainly not going to get you from point A to point B. The same is true with our liver and kidneys. If we don't have enough water to support the liver and kidneys, it's like gasoline for them. It's their fuel in order to process all the toxins and inflammation. Then the liver and kidneys become built up. And what happens is that the body will then take those toxins and do one of 2 things with them. It will either shoot them directly to the areas we're most susceptible to. So that could be showing up in the form of diabetes, autoimmune conditions, any of the chronic symptoms that we talked about before, right? That all of you shared. Or it could be that as a survival mechanism, many bodies will actually create fat reserves as far away from our organs as possible to push the toxins away from the organs. So I know someone had mentioned they were concerned about their child being a little bit overweight. What's happening, and it's not just with children, this is with all of us, right? If there's more inflammation and toxins in the body than your body can process, it will again create added fat to store the toxins in so that they're not going directly to the organs. It's your body's way of keeping you alive. It's pretty cool. So the question then, if you're an adult and you have chronic inflammation, when you're an adult and you have chronic inflammation, you absolutely want to, your goal is to drink about 1 gallon of water a day, which is a ton. But again, that is what's going to push inflammation out of your body. I have the most streamlined, easy way for you to accomplish that. If you're in our Freedom from Inflammation group, you've already heard of it. And if not, I'll be teaching that in the Have It All online program that I'll be inviting you all to. So it is loads of inflammation. Imagine you're just pushing those toxins that are stuck inside the body out, different than staying hydrated. If you have kids, what I like to do is go, like for example, my daughter's 5, I think she weighs like 40 pounds, right? So technically then that means that she only needs 20 ounces of water to stay hydrated per day. So I know minimum she needs to have that. She doesn't have any chronic inflammation in her body. So we'll shoot for anywhere from 25, 30 ounces a day, typically is about what she drinks every day, so that if inflammation is coming in, she can easily flush it out. But for example, my son, who, if let's just say he made a choice to have a slice of birthday cake at a birthday party, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but if I know that my child made a choice to eat something that is loaded with inflammation, then the number 1 deal is we have to go home and chug a glass of water, like a big glass of water, or here's a water bottle, this whole thing, we need to drink it today. And I will do it with them. Again, this is getting us all on the same clean eating train. I will do that challenge with them because we know that the body needs extra water. So if right now, if your child has chronic inflammation, if they don't hardly drink any water, then start off with the standard hydration recommendation, right? half an ounce for every pound of their body, and then start to work up. I would say like you could go as high as a third or even 2/3 more than what that hydration recommendation is, depending on how their body feels and how they're responding. So the second reason that so Rebecca says, my 10-year-old son is 5'2" and weighs 120 pounds. How much water would you recommend? Okay, so the traditional recommendation would be 60 ounces of water simply to stay hydrated, right? But he definitely has chronic inflammation. So if he weighs 120 pounds, that is, if you want to go off of weight, that is almost an adult size, right? So I would say you could give him, 60 ounces. I would say he could easily do 80 to 100 ounces of water per day. I hope that helps. And how to make that happen? Yeah, it's a lot. You want to have them drink a lot of water in the morning, very first thing, because when you drink a bunch of water first thing, like we always have like these quart size 32-ounce mason jars. I drink one of these very first thing in the morning. I have water surrounding me right now, but I do this because what happens is it activates your thirst mechanism. From an evolutionary standpoint, we have a thirst mechanism. And when we put water in our body doesn't know we can walk up to the kitchen counter and start just drinking water. It doesn't know that. We have to actually drink it for it to say like, oh, water's available. And what you'll notice happen is the more water you guys drink, then the more thirsty you will become. Same is true with our kids. The trick is just getting them to slow down and drink, which is why I sometimes will be like, let's do a chugging competition, or how fast, let me put the timer on, how fast can you drink half that glass, or here's your whole water bottle. Like every day when my kids come home, I'm like, did you drink your whole water bottle? Like bring it home and let me refill it. So it's an active piece of parenting and an active piece of getting involved with them. The second thing that causes inflammation is not enough or too much exercise. For kids, we don't really have to worry about too much 99% of the time. I'm more talking about like endurance athletes, people who run like 100-mile races. But what we do need to talk about for kids is too little. So often, especially if our kids have chronic inflammation, right? They're tired. They have lethargy. Their energy is low. So what do they want to do when they come home? Like when we have inflammation in our body, we have cravings off the hook. So we want to comfort ourselves emotionally because we don't feel good, but also chemically in our body, we're craving a lot of food. So we come home, what do we want? We want a cookie. We want like a fruit snack, like something loaded with sugar because it's addictive and it's going to make us feel better for like 30 seconds. That makes us feel terrible. But because we have chronic inflammation in our body and we have so many chronic symptoms, we're used to feeling terrible. So we don't notice it, right? But then we go and a lot of kids will like put on the TV or get on their phone or do an Xbox, or they're just like tired, right? So the more we can push inflammation out of the body, the more energy they're going to have. And this is again why I love parents adopt this way of eating with their kids. Like, let's go for a walk together. Let's go for a bike ride. Go outside, and instead of like, if you go to the playground with your kid, instead of standing and watching, like do the slides with them, swing with them, run around, play chase, like play hot lava, be involved with them, moving your body and theirs. Like you could wake up and do yoga with your kid every morning. You could have a push-up contest at night. You could, if they ate something healthy, be like, oh my goodness, I bet you can do one more push-up than ever before. Like, let's see. In fact, I'm going to do it with you. Make it fun and lighthearted and like a game. So movement, super important. And then stress, right? Stress and neurotransmitters. So again, I'm a science girl. And here's a really interesting fact about inflammation and stress. Our liver and our large intestine are the largest producers of neurotransmitters in our body. These neurotransmitters are sent to our brain, and they help us think clearly, feel grounded. It gives us our ability to focus, and it actually directly impacts our hormonal production in our brain, which then directly affects our overall sense of well-being, confidence, empowerment, right? It is a big, big piece here. And so when our liver, we all know that the liver's primary job is to push toxins and inflammation out. But if there's tons of toxins and inflammation, more than it can actually if we're eating more than it can consume, or if we're not drinking enough water, we're not moving our body, there's just more toxins there than we can actually consume. The liver is in overdrive 24/7. It's constantly trying to process us because that's what keeps us alive. We cannot stay alive without a liver, right? However, if we begin to swap out these top inflammatory ingredients, no longer is the liver being pushed to its limit, right? It's no longer in overdrive. All of a sudden, the liver has a little bit of time and freedom, and it's saying, hey, I can do my second most important job, which is to create these neurotransmitters and send them to our brain. You will notice that your child will think more clearly, be more focused. Kids with ADD and ADHD, huge shifts when you change their diet. Sensory conditions, kids who are struggling with the attention component from a sensory condition, huge shifts. Moms and dads, huge shifts with your ability to focus, stay grounded, be more patient, calm. The way we respond to our kids and to our significant other becomes a response rather than a reaction because we have the neurotransmitters that we're meant to have. If any of you have ever been hungover, I have, right? If you've ever been hungover in your life, just think about like, how do you feel mentally when you're like moving through that? Like someone might ask you a question and the response is like, hold on, I have to think about that. Everything's in slow motion. That is what is happening to our kids and to us when we have chronic inflammation stuck in our body because we don't have the neurotransmitters we need. Okay. It's such a huge, huge aspect. I want to give you an example of how this stress cycle kind of takes place and specifically put it with foods. And this is more so with parents, I think, but also as you're moving through this process with your kids and adopting anti-inflammatory eating, it's this fine line. You don't want your kids to feel guilty for having something inflammatory, right? You want to talk to them, give them options, help them connect how their body's feeling. But I think as parents and as adults, we tend to beat ourselves up over food guilt. So let's just look at this event, thought, emotion, action cycle. Let's imagine, right, that you had a tough day at work, right? And so you decided to come home and have a glass of wine and eat a chocolate brownie, both of which are quite inflammatory. You know that, your body doesn't feel well. And so your thought is, dang it, I can't believe I ate that. It's inflammatory and now I feel terrible and I should have known better and I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to maintain this way of eating. I'm never going to heal my body. I'm always going to be stuck. All these thoughts go through our mind, which create an emotion. And the emotion is a sense of failure. It's depression. It could be anxiety about the future and how you're actually going to heal, right? And that emotion is what triggers another action. And when we feel bad, what do we typically do? We reach for something to comfort ourselves. And unless we have really created a habit of eating foods that are comfort foods, like the cookies and brownies and cakes that I offer, right, without the inflammatory ingredients, we'll reach for whatever's closest that tastes good, that's full of sugar, and can give us a short, immediate response, feel-good response, but then makes us feel terrible again. And then we have a new thought, a new emotion, a new action. It becomes this very vicious cycle. So part of stress management is two-piece. Take out the inflammation, but also be aware of the cycle and how it impacts you. Michelle Smith says, is this being recorded? Will I be able to watch it later? My daughter is actually homesick today with nausea. Oh, sweetness, I'm so sorry. Yes, it will absolutely be recorded, and I will send it via email to you all. And I hope your daughter feels better. So the fourth of the top 5 things that cause chronic inflammation in the body are environmental toxins. I told you guys how my daughter had chronic pneumonia. She had it for 5 months, and then she had it for 2 months, and then she had it for 3 months. She was on so many different antibiotics. None of them worked because that was not the problem. The problem was the inflammation from the air pollution in our house from mold. So environmental toxins, we have less control over, some control, less control over though, which is why it's so important to focus on diet. But air pollution, construction, like new home construction, personal care products, shampoo, conditioners, bacteria, virus, parasites, fungus, all of these cause environmental toxins. If you have them, oh, and mold's not even in there. That's so funny. And mold. There's a whole bunch of different environmental toxins, right? These are just some of the most common. If you have them, it's even more important to take control of removing inflammation from your body through diet, right? Because that's what we have control over. Michelle says, thank you, I'm going now. Thank you for the information. I'm so glad you came into my life. Oh, love you, girl. Thank you. And I'm so glad this is helpful. So what do we do to remove inflammation, right? It's super simple. We do some sort of restorative movement each day, get the blood flowing, play with your kids like we talked about. You want to maintain an anti-inflammatory diet. It's a lifestyle. And I'm going to emphasize maintain. We can all do a 5-day challenge. We can all do the whole 30 for 30 days. Like we can all do a diet. You'll notice I rarely use the word anti-inflammatory diet. It's anti-inflammatory eating for a reason. How do we maintain? We do it by finding foods that don't cause inflammation, but really satisfy us. That is the key piece. That is like the number one thing. Because if we feel satisfied and if the food tastes delicious, then there's no worries. There's no reason to fall off the clean eating train. And then drink loads of water, get rest. So you guys, if you have older kids that are in high school, or definitely as parents, like we become so busy. Our modern day society is so busy. There's not enough time in the day. And so what happens at nighttime, we just push our day into the night, right? We get less and less rest, and our liver actually goes into overdrive to process toxins and inflammation at night. So if we are staying up, if we're pushing that threshold, then our liver isn't getting what it needs to support it. And then the last is think elegantly. So this is something I've taught my kids to do, and it is amazing because they actually reinforce it with me when I'm getting stressed. And this is to take 7 deep, conscious breaths each day. Or if you're having a stressful situation, take 7 deep, conscious breaths and observe if you're responding or reacting to everyday stress differently. The way I do that is I like to sit up straight with a straight spine, feet flat on the floor, and I breathe in my nose for 3 seconds and out my mouth for 6. I'm telling you, 1 breath makes you feel so much better. I love demonstrating that. So I can have that 1 breath. But it doesn't matter if you breathe in for 3 or out for 6. You just, however many breaths you breathe in for, double the amount of breaths you breathe out for. It's actually a method of detoxifying. So the number one way of pushing inflammation out of your body is through water, drinking the water and having it eliminate our body by urinating. The number 2 is through sweating. We can't sweat all day, but we can certainly pee all day, drinking water. And number 3 is through breathing. So as we breathe out, exhale more, then we're detoxifying as we breathe. How easy is it to maintain anti-inflammatory eating for the whole family? So I want all of you, some of you guys have said, like, how many of you actually have adopted anti-inflammatory eating? How many of you maintain it? How many of you are like, yeah, we try to think more healthfully, but it's kind of up and down? I'd love to just kind of hear, you guys, what your experience is, or maybe you've never tried it at all, what your experience is with anti-inflammatory eating. So the secret to anti-inflammatory eating without feeling deprived or overwhelmed is all what my next, I'm really excited, this new, revamped, revitalized, so incredible, have it all online group coaching program. It's the secret to anti-inflammatory eating without compromising the foods you love. And we are going to be, you'll be getting loads and loads of food swaps for you and your kids that are tailored to you, right? You'll be like, oh, my kids love X, Y, like chocolate chip cookies, or I don't know, some sort of brownie or candy or whatever. And so my zone of genius is helping you find swaps for it. But before we get into that even more, I want to talk to you guys about how to streamline in the kitchen. So 2 things to make this super, super easy, right? Oh, and before I dig into this, it says, it's the other Michelle Smith. We're starting from scratch with the kids. Okay, brand new, fabulous. I'm so excited for you. So it's gonna be really important that you adopt this way of eating for yourself first. Like, have it be a habit and talk to them about what you're doing and that you're so excited, and let them see you, how you're shifting. So it's this positive, exciting thing for them to adopt. Rebecca says, I've been working on this for a few years, really taken the reins in the last 10 days to be in integrity with it and feeling so strong. Lyme excess are abating, exercising almost every day. You are amazing, Rebecca. So cool that you're feeling strong in the last 10 days. How can you continue to maintain this for the next few years? That is my question to you, right? XSS equals symptoms, sorry. You're good. Maria says, starting beginning of summer to eat anti-inflammatory, but have a hard time cooking, especially dinners the kids love. Find it hard when traveling. Okay, yes. In my program, Have It All, I have a bonus course on how to travel and maintain anti-inflammatory eating. It's easier than you think. But it took me years to figure out how to make it happen easily. I used to go out to eat and be like, I can't have this or this or this or this or this. And oh, it was no fun. So I figured out a streamlined way to do that. But huge congrats, Maria, to starting this summer. That is amazing. And then dinners, like think of that lasagna. Is that something your kids would like? This is what I wrote my book, Piece of Cake, The Secret to an Anti-Inflammatory Diet. And again, like my mission was, how do I keep my kids on this clean eating train, because I know it impacts them so much. And this is how I've done it, right? And in terms of not only the types of foods, but it's also how do I make it a reality through streamlining. So think about food groups rather than menu prep. Oh my word, people, you guys, when I think about making a new recipe for every dinner, or for lunch and dinner, or for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, my head spins. There is no way I can do that. Yeah, Maria says, I think I'm trying to make too fancy and advanced food. I was with you, Maria. There's so many anti-inflammatory cookbooks out there that are beautiful, and I love them. I buy them because I love the pictures and I want to make them, and I make them for like Thanksgiving or a special occasion, but there's no way I can make those all the time and maintain my sanity and this way of eating. And then to make them and have your kid be like, oh, that is so not fun, right? That's why, again, I go back to like, what foods do my kids love and how do I just swap out those ingredients? And that's what I've created my recipes and food swaps from. So think of food groups rather than menu prep. So you've got protein, carb, and fats. Those are the 3 main kind of macronutrient food groups. So I always think like, how can I cook a bunch of protein that can be incorporated throughout the week? So for example, I might make, grill some steak up and slice it up, and that could be in tacos. I could have just plain steak with some yams and green beans like this. I could have, I could even like do a steak salad, or there's like all different ways, but I try to think of like, what is a protein? Like I made a roast chicken last night. And by the way, this is all grass-fed, grass-finished, or free range if it's poultry, or wild caught if it's fish, because that is a different food group than traditional USDA farm raised or normal chicken, poultry, turkey, beef that you'll find. One is inflammatory. The USDA type stuff actually is inflammatory, and we dive more into that into the course as to why. And the grass-fed, grass-finished is not. Okay, so think of protein, carbs, and fats. It takes just as long to bake a bunch of yams. I made a whole thing of yam fries in my refrigerator. If I were to open that up, you'd see a huge container of yam fries that I made a couple days ago. And those are just to eat on like throughout the week. If kids come home from school, they have a snack of yam fries, or to have it, put it with my kids' lunch. Like that, I'm just grabbing from that throughout the week, so I'm not having to make it every single time, right? So really think of food groups rather than menu prep. So often our dinners consist of some sort of protein with a vegetable and a fruit. Like super simple. Here's some slice of pear, here's a bit of meat, and here's a broccoli. Protein, carbs, and fats. And then cook in batches. Always triple. Oh, why is my computer being so funny? Always triple treat recipes. So you guys, the most important thing when you're getting your kids on the clean eating train is to ensure that there are clean treats on hand at all times. This is not just for them, this is for you too. When you are adopting anti-inflammatory eating and you're detoxing, the cravings hit so hard. And it is okay to eat 24 cookies in a week or a few days if they're non-inflammatory when you're going through detox, right? Like that is a million times better than even eating 5 inflammatory cookies. It's not about calories in, calories out. That is old model. Like science has completely changed that. Yes, there is some calories in, calories out, like a tiny, tiny bit that we want to remember. But honestly, for our sake and what we're doing, if you're taking the inflammation out, remember what I taught you, if our body has more inflammation than it can handle, it creates fat pockets. So if all of a sudden our liver's freed up, it doesn't have to process the inflammation, it can create more neurotransmitters, and it can actually, it'll be like, hey, I've got some extra time. Now I can start processing the toxins and the fat. And the fat naturally drops away. It's very cool. So that was a little bit of a tangent on why it's okay to have lots of clean treats when you're detoxing or when your kids are adopting this way of eating. Make it fun. Always have clean treats. If they eat more clean treats and they take out the inflammatory treats, you are giving them a life full of health and reversing chronic symptoms while they enjoy the foods they're eating. That is the win-win for all. I wanted to show you a few. There's so many more. This is my second book, The Clean Eating Kid. I walk you down the grocery store aisle and I actually tell you all the foods that I put into my cart, foods that we buy that are free of the top 5 inflammatory ingredients. So this is a little tiny snippet, but some of my favorite go-to grocery store swaps. This is the mozzarella cheese, the goat mozzarella that I was telling you guys about, called Mount Sterling. Love this brand. Simple Mills makes pancakes. They make like all cake mix, I almost put up here, and also cookies that are delicious and free of those processed sugars, with the exception of one thing, the chocolate chips they use coconut sugar for most of their sweetener, but the chocolate chips that they use do have a little bit of processed sugar. Cauliflower Foods, you guys, these are so good. It's cauliflower pizza, not like most of the cauliflower pizza you see out on the market. That is because there are, I believe it's like 3 ingredients. It's straight up cauliflower food without the fillers and additives. They just came out with these cauliflower thin crackers, and they have a lentil pasta that they actually traveled to Italy to make, and I hear is incredible. If you're on the go, there's a new bar on the market called Rewind Bar. You have to go online, Google Rewind Bars, Super Bars. The reason I love these is because not only are they free of those top inflammatory ingredients, but they're loaded with spinach, kale, almond butter, cashew butter, strawberries, blueberries, cherries, pea protein, spirulina, green tea, chlorella, dates, quinoa, cocoa, and coconut. These are full of antioxidants and inflammation-fighting foods. And then for all my chocolate lovers out there, right? Honey Mama's chocolate, you guys, these are such good chocolates, and they're also free of these top inflammatory foods. They're made with, like, I think extra virgin coconut oil, raw cacao, raw honey, sea salt, vanilla. That's the base. That's how they make their chocolate. And then they have flavors like peppermint and cardamom and coffee and dried lavender. You feel like you're at the spa. It's so cool. Really quickly though, I want to show you what I'm talking about when I say grocery store swaps or recipe swaps, right? So if you see here, this is a Simple Mills vanilla and cupcake mix. You can actually buy a cake mix. How cool is that? Telling you guys, times have changed since I was first adopted this for my son. The ingredients is almond flour, organic coconut sugar, arrowroot, which is it's like a cassava root, organic coconut flour, baking soda, and sea salt. Or we can go over to, this is, I believe, a Betty Crocker, but any cake mix that you find, the ingredients are going to be similar. So you've got enriched flour, inflammatory, wheat flour, inflammatory, and then a bunch of preservatives, inflammatory, sugar, corn syrup, super inflammatory. Corn syrup is like as bad as it gets. Then you've got more preservatives, inflammatory, palm oil, inflammatory, cornstarch. I look to make sure this is not a non-GMO certified food. So that means the corn is GMO, almost certainly. So that's inflammatory. Modified cornstarch, inflammatory. Salt, is it sea salt? No, so it's inflammatory. And then a whole bunch of preservatives, dextrose, which is another name for sugar, cow's milk, a bunch more preservatives. Like, you guys, the list goes on and on. Look at all those inflammatory ingredients. How cool is it that we have the ability to go to the store and buy a cake mix that we can make for our kid really quick, right? That uses non-inflammatory ingredients. That is what I teach you all how to do, how to make this easy, how to reverse chronic symptoms, how to enjoy the foods you love without compromising the taste, and make it easy. So really quickly, because we are talking about kids, right? One of the big challenges I found was parties. So here's some tricks for navigating parties and holidays, and we're going to dive more into this in the online group. In fact, I have a whole class that I'm going to talk just about this. But use candy. Number one of my tricks is to use candy or treats as a monetary system. So for Halloween, or if my kid was just at a birthday party this weekend, and she got like a birthday favor bag, and there were candies in them. Or last year my kids finished swim lessons, and ironically the coach gave like a huge bag of candy. And so my response is like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Congratulations on getting this favor, this party favor. Congratulations on finishing up with your swim lessons. Let's take all these. Like, wow, you have a lot. Let's get you a big, like, trade it in for something, either an experience, right? Like a day skiing, or a friend that can go to the movies, you know, whatever, a sleepover, whatever it may be. Or often I'll say, like, my daughter's obsessed with shopping right now. She loves dolls and all kinds of crazy things, Hatchimal collectibles, I don't know. So she really is into shopping. So she'll trade the candy in for some money to go shopping. They get really excited, and that way it doesn't take away from the present and everything that they earned, right? Instead, it just gives them a healthier option to still celebrate with. Really quickly, Michelle is saying, is organic corn non-GMO as well? More times than not, it is. Yes. So yes, typically it is. Number two, discuss prior to known cake, candy, treat situation, and make a conscious decision with your child. Let them make the choice with you, and then help them stick to it. So what I mean by that is, when we know there's a birthday party coming up, right? I will talk to my kids a day or two ahead of time and be like, okay, we have this birthday party. It's going to be so fun. How's your body feeling? Do you think that we should make our own treat and bring it there, or go to the grocery store and get a swap and bring it there? And I'll give them more. Like, I'll be like, you can have 3 cookies, or you can have 5 if they're little. Like, you can have 5 whole cookies instead of a cupcake. Or if you want, like, we'll go and, again, instead of having cake, like, because I always think of cake as almost like a gift when you go to a party too, right? It's like a gift for you. Like, if you want to go, we can go to the store and get a little toy or get a little something, and you can bring that to your party and you can have that instead. So it's finding swap. There's so many different swaps out there, you guys, that you can buy or that you can make, and coming together with your kid. If you tell your kid you can't have cake and this is what you're having instead, and that's that, they are going to rebel, I can promise you. But if you have a discussion, and if you're like, oh, you know, my son, he gets super phlegmy, and again, like, his sensory stuff starts to show up if his body's inflamed. So like, Bug, you know, you had this treat at school, and I can like, you've got this phlegm stuff going on, and I can tell that you're just having a hard time feeling good in your skin. And I'm like, let's make some healthy choices. And I will really walk them through. And he may be like, I don't want to. I'm like, but because there's already this chronic inflammation, let's like talk more about this. Most of the time it works well. If he's like, Mom, this means the world to me, I really, really want to do it. Or sometimes they feel embarrassed at first, right? Then I'll say, okay, you can have it, but here's what's going to happen afterwards, more than likely. Your tummy might not feel good. For my son, I'll be like, you're going to have a hard time listening. You're going to feel really emotional. Your skin's not going to feel good. So here's what I need, a promise from you. For 2 weeks after that, we need to eat lots of clean protein, because that's one of the ways to stop cravings. We need to eat lots of clean protein. We need to drink a ton of water and eat super healthy. Can we like make a deal with that? So it's really coming together and helping them. Bring clean treats to a birthday party. I just gave that example. And then the other one, like, teachers are so known for giving out candy as rewards in classrooms. And so at the beginning of the year, I will bring like the Simple Mills cookies, or there's actually some different like organic honey peppermint patty candies. Like, there are some cool swaps. There's not a ton. There's some gummy bears that I found that are clean. Like, there's a few items that I can then bring to the classroom, and I'll just tell my teacher, or my kids' teachers, my child has food allergy to processed sugar and wheat and to inflammatory oils. I'm like, so instead of handing out, like when there's birthday parties or celebrations or handing out rewards, can you just give them these? And I'll always make sure the kids have a say in what we're going to bring to the classroom, because then they get excited to have them, have that as a reward. Okie dokie. So really quick, we're getting to the end here. You guys, let's revisit your why. How would you feel if you could live your today life the way you dreamed? You can take the tips in this presentation and do it on your own, which I gave you a lot of information, hopefully not too much, and you can do it on your own. You can absolutely make a massive impact in your health and your kids' livelihood and their confidence and in their athletic performance and the chronic symptoms they're experiencing by adopting what I am telling you. Or you can join me on a 9-week transformation of learning how to adopt anti-inflammatory eating without feeling deprived or overwhelmed. You can reverse chronic symptoms and eat amazing comfort food, anti-inflammatory style. So in this online group coaching program called Have It All, the secret to anti-inflammatory eating without compromising the foods you love, I am going to personally be there every day to give you food swaps for foods that you and your kids love, to teach you more tips and tricks to getting your kids on the clean eating wagon without you feeling overwhelmed, without them feeling deprived, to help you show up to take your own self-care. And most importantly, you guys, in 9 weeks, and think about Janine, like, she was so sick, and in 2 weeks of time, her life was totally transformed by following this process. In 3 weeks of time, her life was totally transformed by having this process. And she was able to connect and interact with her kids on such a different level. So while this course is 9 weeks long, your life could be completely drastically different. Your why for wanting to make a change could actually be happening in just 2 or 3 weeks of time. The key is how well you adopt and stay in alignment. So I have 100% success rate with people who follow this process and are in integrity and stick with it, and reversing or significantly improving their chronic symptoms. That is not me. I mean, it is a little bit, because I've walked my talk and learned all these tips and tricks, but more so, it's the science. Like I said, I'm a science girl, and I've really figured out how to give you guys the best bang for your buck. So if you want to sign up, the course is a one-time fee of $500, which is an amazing price. This is the first time I've publicly opened up the doors to group coaching at a very accessible price. Typically my VIP coaching is in the thousands. And so this is one of my goals, is to make this way of eating accessible for everyone, because we have to help our kids, right? We have to help ourselves, and we have to help our kids. And I know what it's like trying to raise a family. And there's not always a ton of extra money. So you can do one payment of $500 or 2 payments of $300. You can sign up below. The course starts next Monday, October 15th. And you can sign up at https://bit.ly/2YBANCP. I will also post it in the comments. Let's see if I can. Oh, maybe I can't post it in the comments. But I will send a follow-up email if you guys need to see it. During this course, though, here's what will happen. For the first 30 participants, which you guys are all within that range, there's going to be 2 added bonuses. An extra jump start group coaching call with me to catapult you into, like, answer all your questions, catapult you into vibrant health before we even get going. And a special group coaching call and workshop with author and dear friend Jen Aiden, who's going to teach us how to put anxiety and stress to the wayside, especially during the holidays. Then bonuses for everyone that signs up is a comprehensive meal plan from Krista Benson, a physical kitchenette. So besides all my recipes and food swaps, you're going to have even more. This is like a 40-page PDF, like super thought out, streamlined grocery list, everything. A box of delicious anti-inflammatory rewind bars that I showed you in the how to set boundaries to maintain self-care while running multiple large businesses and supporting 4 kids at home. Ryan is one of the most successful people, and he's the man behind many of the major health movements. So it's an incredible opportunity for us to learn from him. And then Courtney Townley, who's the founder of the Grace and Grit podcast, is going to be giving us tips to move from I should to I am when adopting self-care. Krista Benson, again, founder of Physical Kitchenette, is going to talk to us about how to maintain clean eating while on the go. She is a mom whose husband serves overseas, so she's a single mom most of the time with 2 young kids and has really had to figure out, again, how to streamline in the kitchen. And then Tanya Harris, dear friend Tanya Harris, who's an environmental toxin specialist. She is a survivor of childhood cancer. She is going to talk to us about the key to reduce environmental toxins in our home. So that is what is going on. Oh, Rebecca says, you have such amazing heart, Jenny. Thank you. I am so honored. Thank you. But truly, thank you. This is, you guys, this way of eating, it saved my life a few years ago. So not only has it changed my kids' life, and not only did it make me feel better like years ago, but a couple of years ago, I almost died from chronic illness and Lyme and a severe parasite infection that was so severe it put holes through all my organs, ate away my endocrine glands, and I started to go into failure when the neurotoxins released. So I am extremely passionate about this because it has transformed everyone's life in my family and those who I've had the incredible honor of working with. So during this course, you guys, beyond the bonuses, the way it will work, there's a private Facebook group that you'll have daily access to me. I just came up with it. I think it's 8, maybe even 9. So close to every week. I think it's 8 workshops, either group coaching calls with me or workshops from these amazing guest presenters throughout the entire program. You will have your own student center in a place called Kajabi, where every week you will have access to short yet like very potent videos. 1 week at a time, we're looking at adopt one of the inflammatory foods, giving you lots of swaps, giving you science about why they're inflammatory, and then talking about moving together that week as a team, as a cohort in the Facebook group. I'm trying to think what else. That is mostly how it's happening. Then there's the bonus classes for everyone, which I don't think is on here. We're going to be talking about the clean eating kid even more in depth. If you have questions, we'll have specific group coaching calls for people who have questions around the clean eating kid, as well as for people who are looking to heal their autoimmune or crisis symptoms. We'll have a special group coaching for that as well. Whew. So you guys, anyone have any questions? If you have any questions, or if you're signing up, let me know so I can celebrate with you. I am really, really excited to be offering this. I've put so much thought into how to create a program that is, it's not about all the details I just gave you, quite honestly. It's about the outcome that you're gonna get. It's about you and your kids feeling better really quickly and enjoying the foods you love. So before I say goodbye, are there any questions from anyone? Okay, you guys, thank you for staying on, sending so much love to you. I'm truly, truly grateful. And here's the last thing I'll leave with you, is that it is the gap between knowledge and action where so many of us fall down. My goal for you is not to fall down in that gap. Take action. Take something you learned from today and apply it. Not tomorrow, not in a week from now, not when you're ready or prepared, not at the right time, right now, this second. But do it for yourself and then begin taking action with your kids. And if you need someone to help you, I'm here for you in an online program. And if you're like, I'm a go-getter and I always can follow through and do it on my own, I'm so excited for you and I'd love to hear how that goes in the future. So stay in touch and have a beautiful day. All right, bye-bye.